Everyone told him it was impossible. You'll lose everything, they said. You don't understand the space industry. Rockets are for governments, not dreamers. But Elon Musk, South African-born, bullied as a child, lived with more books than friends. Believed in impossible ideas, electric cars, reusable rockets, brain chips, saving humanity by colonizing Mars. People laughed. Investors left. His first 3 rockets exploded. SpaceX was minutes from bankruptcy. Tesla, barely surviving. He was sleeping on friends' couches, had one final launch left, but Musk held on to one thing: unshakable, irrational, obsessive hope. Then, the 4th rocket flew into orbit and changed history. From that fire and failure rose the first private company to reach space. SpaceX didn't just launch rockets, it launched a new mindset. If you believe hard enough, physics will eventually listen. Elon says, when something is important enough, you do it. Even if the odds are not in your favor. It wasn't money, it wasn't luck, it was vision powered by belief. And today, he's not just launching rockets, he's launching humanity toward the stars. So ask yourself, what if the only thing between you and your dream is refusing to give up when no one believes it's possible? The universe doesn't reward the smartest, it rewards those who dare to believe when no one else will. Imagine waking up with no arms, no legs, no way to hold your dreams. This isn't a story from a movie, this is Nick Vujicic's real life. Born with tetraamelia syndrome, a rare condition that left him completely without limbs, Nick entered a world that said, you'll never walk, never write, never be independent. He was bullied, mocked, and by the time he was just 10 years old, he wanted to die. But something happened, a spark, a shift inside. Nick made a decision. If I can't change the outside, I'll change how I see myself on the inside. He chose radical gratitude. He learned to type with his foot, to swim, to surf, and then to speak. One voice. No limbs. Infinite hope. Today, Nick has stood before millions in over 70 countries sharing his truth. No arms, no legs, no limits. He's hugged children who felt worthless. He's looked into the eyes of teens wanting to give up, and gave them a reason to keep going. Because Nick's journey proves one thing. The biggest disability isn't the body, it's a mind convinced it's powerless. What if every limit we believe in is just a lie waiting to be unlearned? I look at Nick and I realize, I'm not broken, I'm born to inspire. If he can find light in total darkness, maybe we've only scratched the surface of what's truly possible in ourselves. Before the world crowned Elvis Presley the king of rock and roll, he was just a kid with a secondhand guitar and a dream that sounded way too big for a Memphis truck stop. It's 1954, 19-year-old Elvis steps out, heart pounding, onto the Grand Ole Opry stage. He's shy, he's nervous, but when he sings, he gives it everything he's got. The curtains close, silence, no applause, no record deals, just the heavy air of rejection. The manager pulls him aside. Kid, you're not cut out for this, go back to driving trucks. Imagine hearing that. For most people, that's the end of the story, but not for Elvis. He goes home, but he doesn't give up. I don't sound like anyone else, he says, and maybe that's exactly the point. He keeps practicing, keeps dreaming, knocks on every door he can find, and finally Sun Records opens theirs. That's where the magic starts. Elvis goes from tiny studio sessions to radio, from local gigs to stadiums packed with screaming fans. The world had never seen anything like him. Hips swinging, voice blending gospel, country and blues, hair slicked in a way that just wasn't done. People told him he was too wild, too different, too much. But he turned every two into something true. Elvis didn't just sing music, he changed it forever, because he dared to believe that if nobody else saw his spark, he'd light his own fire. That fire, it became a global flame. Over 1 billion records sold. A legend, not because he fit in, but because he refused to. So I want to ask you, what if your biggest no is just your yes in disguise? Elvis wasn't born the king, he was forged by fire and fueled by belief. Before the castles, the princesses, the fireworks, there was only a pencil, and a man with dreams too wild for his time. 1920s, Walt Disney, just another newspaper cartoonist in Kansas City. Poor, overworked. His editor, brutal. You're not creative enough, you lack imagination, fired, most would give up. Me, I drew more. I sold my camera, slept in my studio, drew until my fingers bled, ate beans, lived on hope. I created Laugh-O-Gram Studio, and lost everything, bankrupt, alone. Yet every night I whispered to myself, I believe in magic, even if no one else does. I kept imagining. A mouse was born. Mickey, no one wanted him either. Too simple, too childish. But kids around the world didn't care, they believed, because I believed. Then came Pinocchio, Bambi, Cinderella, Peter Pan. Not just animations, Escapes for broken children, hope for tired parents, dreams stitched in color and sound. But I wasn't done. If you can dream it, you can do it. I said it, I lived it. When they said no one would visit a theme park for kids, I built Disneyland. The rest? A billion-dollar empire powered by relentless optimism. He was told he wasn't creative enough. So he imagined entire worlds. The power of positive thinking isn't a fairy tale. Sometimes it's what makes fairy tales come true.
Before the screaming crowds, the sold-out stadiums and the iconic haircuts, the Beatles were just four boys with a dream and a world that kept saying no. Picture this: London, 1962. They're young, hungry, walking into Decca Records, guitars in hand, hope in their eyes. They play their hearts out, pour everything into that audition, and then nothing. Silence. A Decca executive tells them, "We don't like your sound." Guitar groups are on the way out. Ouch. Brutal. No money, no record deal, no break. Even their friends start to wonder maybe it's time to give up, but they don't. Instead, they double down. We believe in our music. We believe in ourselves. That belief, it becomes fuel. They grind it out in basements, play tiny pubs, get booed off stage, sleep in vans, eat cheap meals, but every morning they wake up with a single thought: we are going to change the world with sound. And then they do. Love Me Do hits the airwaves. It's not just a song, it's the start of a revolution. In just a few years, they sell over 250 million records, top charts in more than 20 countries. They don't follow the industry. They lead it. The world said they wouldn't make it. The Beatles answered with music that touched generations. Positivity isn't always loud. Sometimes it starts in silence and grows into a roar that reshapes history.
He was hungry, heartbroken, and called insane. But he kept painting. Vincent van Gogh, a man who painted not for fame, not for money, but because his soul demanded it. He created over 800 paintings, each stroke a scream from the silence of his pain. Yet he sold only one painting, to a friend, for almost nothing, while the world ignored him. Picture him, walking alone in a field, eyes full of fire, a brush in hand, thunder rumbling in the background. He painted through psychosis, through starvation, through solitude. Why? Because he believed his vision was bigger than his pain. He wrestled with mental illness. He often chose canvas over food. He longed for love but embraced rejection. Yet he never stopped. Because his mind saw beauty where others saw nothing. What if he had listened to the world and quit? There would be no starry night, no sunflowers, no timeless colors dancing through eternity. Today, Van Gogh's art is worth hundreds of millions. But what he really left behind was proof that a broken man with hope can outlive centuries. This is the power of belief. This is the strength of a soul that refuses to die. This is the victory of a dream that outshined despair. Even if no one sees your light today, keep shining. One day the world will turn to look. Tag someone who's creating in silence. Remind them, so did Van Gogh. Before they conquered the skies, they were grounded by illness, depression, and constant failure. Orville and Wilbur Wright, just two bicycle mechanics from Ohio, weren't born geniuses. They were born doubted. Orville battled typhoid fever. Wilbur sank into deep depression after a brutal hockey injury shattered his dreams of Yale. While the world obsessed over locomotives and telegrams, the Wright brothers dreamed of flying like birds. People mocked them, laughed at their wood and cloth death trap and said, if man were meant to fly, he'd have wings. But they had something stronger than wings. They had belief. They failed. Hundreds of times. They crashed. They rebuilt. They adjusted. And then, on December 17, 1903, in the freezing winds of North Carolina, they flew. 12 seconds of air. A revolution for mankind. From two broken dreamers to inventors who changed human history. Their secret? Not money, not schooling, but mindset. Positive thinking isn't magic, but it is the engine of impossible dreams. If the Wright brothers hadn't believed they could fly, maybe we never would. The airplane stays up because it doesn't have the time to fall. Believe in your flight, your sky is waiting. Before Microsoft, before billions, there was failure. A young man named Bill Gates created a company called Trafo-Data. His dream? To revolutionize traffic data for cities. The result? A total flop. The product didn't work, and no one cared. Most people would quit. But Bill Gates wasn't most people. Rejected, embarrassed, and doubted, he turned failure into fuel. He believed there was something bigger ahead. Then came an idea, a bold one. What if we put a computer on every desk in every home? People laughed. Experts called it impossible, absurd. But he stayed relentlessly optimistic. He locked himself in rooms for days, coding, dreaming, building. That belief became Microsoft, and the world would never be the same. Windows, Excel, Internet Explorer, from a failed traffic machine to digital empires. And the secret? Not genius, not luck, but mindset. When you believe in what's possible, even after failing, the world eventually believes in you too. From dropout to billionaire, from a kid with a broken machine to a man who built the future. It's fine to celebrate success, but it is more important to heed the lessons of failure. Your first idea might fail, but your belief must not. Before the fame, before the controversy, there was only doubt. A boy called Charles Darwin was told he'd amount to nothing. His father said he was lazy. His teachers called him a daydreamer. But Charles had a fire inside. Not the kind that shouts, the kind that asks questions no one dared to ask. He sailed aboard the HMS Beagle, not knowing he'd be gone 5 years, nor that the journey would challenge everything he was taught. As he collected fossils and sketched finches, he slowly pieced together an idea so powerful that it terrified even him. What if nature itself selected who would survive? For 20 years he kept that idea in silence. Fear, rejection, ridicule. Yet he believed. And when he finally spoke, the world shook. On the Origin of Species changed how we understand life itself. From the ashes of self-doubt rose one of the greatest minds in human history. Not because he shouted the loudest, but because he refused to stop thinking. And behind that was belief, in truth, in reason, in himself. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, but the one most responsive to change. Charles Darwin. Doubt is not your enemy. Silence is. Believe, evolve. Before the millions, before the engines roared, there was only silence. A man. A dream too big for his time. A vision of a world driven, not by wealth but by wheels. His name was Henry Ford. But success didn't come in a straight line. He failed. And failed again. 5 times his companies crumbled, factories closed, investors walked away. The world whispered, "Give up." But he didn't. Henry believed that failure wasn't the end. It was fuel. With every mistake he rebuilt. Stronger, smarter. Then, the Model T was born. Affordable, reliable. A car for the common man. And for the first time, America moved forward. Together. He didn't just build cars. He built belief. That you could fail 5 times and still make history on the 6th. That progress comes to those who keep turning the key. Whether you think you can, or you think you can't, you're right. Henry Ford. Fall, rebuild, drive forward. Believe in the power of forward thinking. He didn't speak until he was 4. He couldn't read until he was 7. Teachers said he was slow. Some said he was mentally impaired. A quiet boy in a loud world. Albert Einstein. He was expelled from school. Rejected from the Zurich Polytechnic. Misunderstood, mocked. A world that couldn't yet see, the universe in his mind. But Albert didn't break. He believed. In curiosity. In wonder. In the power of thinking differently. The man once thought incapable would unlock the secrets of the cosmos. E equals mc squared. 3 letters that redefined modern science. A Nobel Prize. A name the world would never forget. But his greatest discovery? Not energy. Not relativity. But that even when the world doubts you, you must never doubt yourself. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Don't speak louder. Think deeper. That's the power of a mind that refused to give up.
He was born too early and too small. His father had died before he ever opened his eyes. At school he failed. At the farm he struggled. No one believed he would amount to anything. Too slow, they said. Too weak, they whispered. But inside me, a storm of questions. Why do apples fall? What moves the heavens? My uncle saw a spark. He convinced my mother to let me go. And with that, I was free to think. While the world fought plague and war, I isolated myself, alone with the cosmos. There, in solitude, I rewrote the laws of nature. Gravity, optics, calculus, equations swirling across my mind, apples falling in slow motion, light bending through prisms. The farm boy became the man who made the universe understandable. I wasn't born into greatness. I thought my way there. If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. Even gravity couldn't keep me down. The power of a relentless mind.
What if the world's greatest storyteller had given up after 30 rejections? Picture this: Stephen King. Not a best-selling author, not a household name, just a janitor, a part-time English teacher, a man scraping by, struggling to feed his family. Still, every night, after the kids were asleep, he sat down in a cramped trailer and wrote. He poured his soul onto each page, even when exhaustion threatened to swallow him whole. The only soundtrack was the click of his typewriter and the hope that maybe, just maybe, it would all amount to something. But life, it didn't make it easy. His first novel, Carrie, was rejected again and again. Not once, not 10 times, 30. 30 times, publishers said. No, 30 times he wondered if he was chasing a fantasy. It hurt, badly. He felt invisible. Finally, breaking, he tossed the manuscript in the trash. No one wants this, he thought. Maybe he didn't either. But here's the twist. Someone else believed. His wife, Tabitha, fished Carrie out of the garbage. She smoothed out those pages, handed them back and said, "Finish it." She saw what he couldn't. Potential, possibility, purpose. And that one act, that belief, changed everything. Stephen listened. He finished his story. And when Carrie finally got published, it exploded. Bestseller. Suddenly, the world wanted more. Then came The Shining. It, Misery. Suddenly the man in the trailer was the king of horror. Over 350 million books sold. All of it. Because he didn't quit. Because someone believed in him, even when he couldn't believe in himself. So here's what I want you to take away. Belief isn't fantasy. It's the ink behind every legend, every story that moves us. If Stephen King gave up after rejection number 30, we'd never know what fear really is. Don't quit. Not after one no, not after 30. Someone out there needs your story, just the way only you can tell it. The only thing scarier than rejection is never trying again. What do you do when the world says you're no longer needed in the company you created? He was the visionary behind Apple. At just 21, he co-founded a company that would change the world. But not all revolutions begin smoothly. From a small garage, Apple took its first breath. The world watched as the Lisa launched to thunderous applause, only for sales to tumble just as quickly. In 1985, after internal tensions, Steve was pushed out of his own company. The man who built Apple was now an outsider. Most would have walked away, but not him. With boxes in hand and dreams undimmed, he walked into the unknown. It was lonely, it was hard. But in the dark, a new light sparked. Next was born, not with certainty, but with relentless vision. Steve believed that failure wasn't the end, it was just the next step. And when Apple was on the brink, desperate for revival, guess who they called back? He didn't just return, he revolutionized. The iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, each one a bold bet, a leap of imagination. Apple's value soared, becoming the most valuable company on the planet. Steve Jobs proved that true greatness isn't built in comfort. It's forged in crisis. It's born when you get back up, when nobody expects you to. So, maybe rejection's not the end. Maybe it's your beginning. If you believe hard enough, the world will bend. Steve didn't just think different, he believed different. The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Imagine being told no over 1,000 times and still refusing to give up on your dream. That was Harlan Sanders. Alone in his battered old Ford, he drove across America day and night, knocking on restaurant doors, chasing a hope almost everyone told him was impossible. One by one, the owners shook their heads. Doors slammed. Over 1,000 times he heard the same answer, no. Most people would have quit, given up, but not the Colonel. He just kept going. And then, door number 1009, this time a yes. One simple yes, that's all it took. Just 5 cents earned for every chicken sold, but a lifetime of belief poured into every bite. His dream, finally, was real. Word spread, fast, doctors called it special, fans couldn't get enough. The secret recipe turned into hundreds of franchises across America. And it all started with relentless faith, proof that resilience is the most powerful ingredient there is. So listen, every no you hear is just a step closer to your yes. Your passion, your belief, those are the secret ingredients to your own success. Keep knocking. Your door is waiting.